One of the most frustrating mysteries of the modern music scene is the disappearance of Welsh musician and Manic Street Preachers member Richey Edwards. Originally working as a roadie and driver for the band, Richey soon became a full member and spokesman for the Manic Street Preachers. He was even responsible for the band's name. Before his involvement, they went under the name Betty Blue, primarily serving as the band's designer and lyricist alongside Nicky Wire. According to the band, Richey wrote 80% of the lyrics to their third album, The Holy Bible. Both men share writing credits for every song the band put out prior to Richey's disappearance, and he was actively involved in the band's musical direction. In 1991, Richey Edwards, following an argument with the NME writer Steve Lamacq over whether the band's punk rock aesthetic and values were genuine, Edwards took a razor blade and carved the phrase "for real" into his forearm. According to Lamacq, Richey did this without showing any apparent pain. Due to the self-inflicted injury, Edwards had to be taken to the hospital, where the cuts were treated. It took 18 stitches to stop the bleeding. The public was shortly made aware of Richey Edwards' self-harm. Edwards suffered from periods of intense depression, and he was open about this in interviews. Frequently, he would burn himself by putting out lit cigarettes on his body, in addition to cutting. He is reported to have said this about his self-harm: "When I cut myself, I feel so much better. All the little things that might have been annoying me suddenly seem so trivial because I'm concentrating on the pain. I'm not a person who can scream and shout, so this is my only outlet. It's all done very logically." Shortly after the band's third album released in 1994, Richey was checked into a mental institution. This would cause him to miss out on most of the album's promotional work, and also required the Manic Street Preachers to appear without him in a concert and reading part. In addition to Richey's struggle with depression, he suffered from alcoholism and anorexia. Though he was open with all of these problems, neither the band nor their fans were prepared for what was to happen next. Richey's final concert appearance was at the London Astora in December of 1994, where he infamously smashed his guitar following the song "You Love Us." And on the 1st of February 1995, the band was due to fly to the United States on a promotional tour. 2 weeks prior, Richey withdrew a total of £2,800 from his bank account. This prompted some speculation as to whether the money was for his touring expenses or some other endeavor. Edwards claimed the money was for a desk meant for his home in Cardiff, though said desk was never actually paid for. The night before he disappeared, Richey gifted a friend the book Novel with Cocaine. The book tellingly follows the main character's disappearance following a stay in a mental institution. At the Embassy Hotel, he left a wrapped package addressed to an individual called Joe. The package contained several books and pictures with sentimental value to him, including a copy of the play Equus, a photograph of a German house, and a drawing of Bugs Bunny. With the package was a note reading simply, "I love you." He checked out of the hotel at 7 a.m. the next day, leaving behind his packed suitcase and some of his medication, and drove to his apartment in Cardiff. According to a fan of the band, Richey was seen in the Newport passport office. The fan talked with Edwards for a brief moment about a mutual friend of theirs, Laurie Fiddler, before he departed. According to the taxi driver who worked in Newport at the time, he picked up Richey Edwards from the King's Hotel and drove him out to the countryside, and when they reached Richey's hometown of Blackwood, he told the driver to keep moving, saying, "This isn't the place," and asked to be taken to Pontypool Station, where he paid the fare in cash. On February 14th of that year, Richey's car was found abandoned at the Severn View station. The battery was long dead, and there was evidence that the car had been lived in, with discarded fast food wrappers and other garbage on the floor. Due to the station's close proximity to the Severn Bridge, a well-known suicide spot, it was assumed by many that Richey had taken this trip to end his life, via a jump from the bridge. However, many who knew Richey insist that he was not the type to commit suicide. Richey Edwards himself also insisted he would never do such a thing in an interview in the year before. Later, a man fitting Richey's description was sighted in Goa, India, in addition to other sightings in Lanzarote and Fuerteventura. Though these sightings have never been positively confirmed, fans of the band, and even his family, held out hope that Richey Edwards was still out there and would one day return to them. Even the Manic Street Preachers themselves stayed true to their bandmate and close friend, still paying 25% of their royalties in an account in his name. Though he vanished in 1995, Richey's musical output did not end there. Before his strange disappearance, he left behind a collection of written songs, speculated by some to have been his version of a suicide note. This material was recorded and then released in 2009 as Journal for Plague Lovers, and it's the only album by the Manic Street Preachers that exclusively credits Richey Edwards as the songwriter. Though he was officially declared legally dead in 2008, there persists claims he staged his disappearance to escape from the stressful and highly scrutinized life of a rock star. Not only did Richey's family have a history of people disappearing and isolating themselves from their relatives, but he himself is known to have had a fascination with the subject of going into self-imposed exile, being a fan of writers who have pulled off similar disappearances from public life, such as Arthur Rimbaud and J.D. Salinger. Throughout his collection of books, many of them were marked up on certain pages with descriptions of disappearing and living in exile. The mystery of what happened to Richey Edwards endures, with no body of concrete proof on his death being discovered, even after being declared dead in 2008. His lyrics and life paint a picture of a deeply troubled soul, and wherever he may be, we can only hope that Richey has found some measure of peace at last.